Hi there, I'm Coach Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And in this video, we're going to be talking to you about, will an avoidant ever see the pain that they caused?
Maybe in 2075. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, never. Is that what you're saying? It's a tough question.
That's a tough question.
With an avoidant, I have really seen that they do see things, but not often. It feels to me like they have these glimpses, these moments where they realize things, and then their walls, their defense mechanisms go back up within themselves, and then they try not to keep thinking about it.
Mm-hmm. And you have to remember that the pain for somebody with an avoidant attachment style is going to be different than the pain for somebody with an anxious attachment style. So we're talking about apples and oranges here. It could be difficult for the person with a more avoidant attachment style to truly empathize with what the anxious person feels, just like it is vice versa.
Sure. Until they're really feeling it, until they have what it's like in your shoes, it's hard. In other words, let me give an example. Like at the time of the breakup, they don't have any empathy or compassion for the amount of anxiety you're going through. They're going to be cold, they're going to be rude, they're going to be dismissive. Now, if you stay in no contact and you don't reach out to them, if they reach out to you one day and you take your time replying or you are no longer interested, now they're going to know what it's like. Now it's going to hit them hard. Even though it's months later sometimes, they're going to be like, oh, now I know what it felt like.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I did that to them. It was horrible.
Yeah.
They probably hate me.
And we talked to plenty of avoidants who have been dumped by their anxious partners, and they realize at that point just what that anxiety feels like, what that separation anxiety feels like. And we hear it from them. They're saying, oh my gosh, I'm wondering what they're doing. Sometimes they're doing the stalking. And for them, they're experiencing just a glimpse of what their anxious partner probably felt throughout the entire relationship.
It's really interesting how the dynamic, it's always going on with a connection where, if one person is feeling anxious, it may be because the other one needs a little space, and they don't know what that other person is going through in that moment, meaning that the other person is anxious, until that other person pulls away, and now they're in that position. They're like, it's so interesting.
It is.
How it's like we get so caught up on how we feel in that moment that we lose sight of how the other person's feeling.
Right. And really in a relationship, we all want to be understood, right? We all want our partner to know what we're going through or try to understand our pain. So it makes sense that many of you do ask this question, like, do they really understand how they've hurt me? Do they really understand how this felt? And for many of you, you may have felt neglected throughout the relationship, especially if you're more anxious. You might have higher needs in a relationship. You may have questioned your worth. You may have felt disappointed by them not showing up in the ways that you need. So it could be a really painful experience on your end, and you're wondering, do they see it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's frustrating because you don't know how much they do or don't get what they're doing to you. In other words, like if you felt like you knew that they were purposely hurting you, you'd be like, well, I can't be with somebody like this. But if they're not doing it intentionally, you kind of like, well, maybe they just don't understand that when I ask them to go see this movie and they don't want to go, it makes me feel sad. It makes me feel lonely. Because that's another thing that you often feel dating an avoidant. You feel, even if you're with them in the room, you could feel alone. You could feel like you can't connect with somebody. And that's a very lonely, isolating feeling. A lot of times you will feel like your needs are being dismissed. Oh, that's not a big deal. Or something that's important to you, they make it seem like it's not important. Maybe because they just don't feel like being bothered with that activity or whatever it is. So they dismiss. But that's also been done to them. Now, I'm not making excuses for what they're doing as an adult, but it probably happened to them a lot as a child, right?
And it's something that we see from avoidance all the time, too. Sometimes in breakups, they'll say, well, I had no idea anything was wrong. And this is why when we're talking to avoidants and talking about reflecting back on the relationship, we bring up, did they ever mention any kind of complaint or any kind of need, maybe a request? It might have been something small. A lot of times it takes some reflecting for them to be like, oh yeah, they had mentioned like maybe 50 times that they wanted to go watch this movie.
I didn't think they really wanted to say it.
Yeah, sometimes there can be this like blissfully unaware kind of attitude during the relationship until something happens to kind of wake that person up that's severe enough, like a breakup, to say, oh my gosh, what really went wrong? And now the person is really reflecting and thinking about what that's like.
And can we just talk about the opposite of that for a second, which is hilarious when you think about it? Meanwhile, the avoidant will say to you one time in passing, we don't go to the beach anymore. And you don't really pick up on it. And then at the time of the breakup, they're like, I told you, you knew how important the beach was to me. I love the beach. You see paintings in my house of the beach. I have 15 pairs of, bathing suits, shorts, or whatever.
Speedos. No.
Yeah, Speedos.
How could you not know?
How could you not know?
Yeah.
But they only told you one time.
Yeah. And so being with an avoidant, sometimes, those, you could feel nitpicked about things where you're saying, wait a minute, what? Where is this coming from? And sometimes even in dating an avoidant, they might find these little tiny flaws. You might start to feel like you're walking on eggshells with that person because you're thinking, well, what's the next thing that's going to set them off? If I don't know, do my hair in a certain way, is that going to give them the ick? And then is that going to push them away?
Or you complain about something.
Right,
and then you feel like you have to keep it to yourself because they're just going to get mad and
am I coming
leave
off
you.
as too needy?
Yeah.
Am I doing too much? Am I too much for this person? So that can be part of the pain in dating an avoidant or having an avoidant ex, is having those experiences with them.
Mm-hmm.
And many of you have also felt led on by your avoidant partner, especially in the beginning. If your avoidant had come on very strong, maybe they had made very lofty promises about the future. Maybe they had shown a lot of affection and attention early on.
Yep.
That later on in the relationship, you kind of saw that drop off and are wondering, hey, what's happening here? Maybe they made promises in the beginning that they weren't able to keep. And so there can be that pain of disappointment of, you led me to believe that this relationship was going one way, that you'd always be there for me, and then it turned out completely differently. Then you started to see their avoidant side come out 6 months later, and you're like, where is this coming from? This isn't even the same person.
Well, I have seen a bunch of stuff recently online about future faking. And now people are just starting to be aware of future faking. It's like avoidants have been doing that since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
They come on strong with all these magical pictures of how things are going to be so perfect and amazing when you just met them 3 weeks ago. I love you. I've never felt this way before. I could see myself marrying you and having kids with you. And then they break up with you because they don't like your socks.
Yeah.
Are you always going to wear fluffy socks? Your fluffy socks rub against me when we're sleeping, and it drives me crazy. But it's not an exaggeration.
Yeah,
they
those things do happen.
Yeah.
They do happen.
They come on really strong, and then all of a sudden they leave you for petty reasons, and you're just like, what just happened?
Yeah.
I think their relationships with others have been so painful that they don't like to live in reality. They create their own reality in a lot of different ways. And you can hear it in some of the things that they say, some of the beliefs that they have. And so they often minimize things. They make it seem like it's not a big deal. They can say something incredibly hurtful, and then they act like I'm just being honest. They can say something like, I really hate your haircut. I really hate it. And you're like, hurt. And then they're like, I'm just being honest. Wouldn't you rather me be honest? Would you rather me look at your head every day with that bizarre shape that you have on top of your neck? I'm kidding, of course, but it's not far from the truth in some ways, that they can say these really hurtful things and they feel like unaffected. They look like they're unaffected by what they've done.
And many times avoidants can have that attitude almost as if they're unbothered by things or unscathed, especially during the breakup. You might be going through it. You might be feeling super emotional. Maybe you're crying a lot, and maybe they're just very, deadpan, not really giving you much emotion. It almost seems like they don't care. Trust me, for somebody to have developed an avoidant attachment style and to not be able to connect with other people on that emotional level, that's not ultimately comfortable. in the sense of that's not really getting them to that place where they're growing, where they're feeling connected, where they're feeling seen and heard. It might be comfortable in the sense that that's like the mechanism that they had grown up with and that's all they know. But there is a deep pain and loneliness in that and not being able to connect with someone on that level. So this is not for, me to justify how avoidants act, but just for you to understand that it's not they're, frolicking in a field and they're, happy and living these jolly lives and able to, shut other people out. That's just not how it works. Yep. I know many of you are afraid that the next person they're going to meet, they're going to be super emotionally connected with.
It's going to be perfect.
It's going to be transcendent. They're going to be so available emotionally for that person. A lot of times that's not how it works.
No.
These are deeper patterns that come from a lot of pain.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And that they say hurt people, mm-hmm. which is true. Because when you're hurting and you're not in a good place, it's going to come out in a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So they might not be able to fully understand the pain that you're going through just because they're not anxious. They've developed a whole different set of mechanisms to cope through life. It's going to be hard for them to really understand what that's like. It's almost like somebody has a headache and somebody broke a bone and you're trying to understand what that pain feels like for the other person.
Yeah.
It's a different type of pain. It's still pain. And the most important thing you want to see, though, is that attempt of trying to understand. Can your avoidant ex have some empathy or show some compassion? Say that I might not understand the ins and outs of your pain, but I'm willing to sit with you through it. I'm willing to understand how my behavior contributes to it. Right? I know especially if we're trying to work something out with an avoidant partner, we can't expect them to be 100% perfect tomorrow just because they, understand that they're avoidant and now they're more aware of their behaviors. But we can see, are they putting in that effort to try? Are they willing to stand beside me to do the work that it takes for them to make this relationship work?
Sure. When two people are navigating a connection, it's not easy, and there's not always a right answer mm-hmm. to know what to do, because sometimes you have to compromise or, work with another person on their needs, and it's not easy to figure out because people have different needs. But if you have a partner that is at least willing to say, I know we're disagreeing about this or we see it differently, but, I still love you and I still want to try and work on this. That makes a big difference, mm-hmm. That they're willing to compromise, or they care about what you need, or they care about the needs of the relationship, and they're willing to work at it and in many cases get help from themselves to get to a good place so they have the energy to give to the relationship.
Mm-hmm. Right. And we have talked to many avoidants who have shown genuine remorse, who have shown guilt for the ways that they've shown up. And so we do see that as possible. It's possible for avoidants to, try to understand, to empathize and show compassion.
It's interesting, too. I would say if I looked at, let's say, all my clients from 2025, I would say some of the hardest ones that I could think of right off the top of my head are avoidants. Mm-hmm. They do a lot of calls. They're doing the creative healing course. Mm-hmm. Many of them are doing the course over and over again. Mm-hmm. So you would think, oh, you're working harder than the avoidant. You might not be, because true. I can think of a few right off the top of my head. Mm-hmm. In fact, I did a call with one of them today that you've done calls mm-hmm. with too, mm-hmm. that working really hard on getting to a great place.
Right. And so it's possible for change to happen. And I know there's that question of will they ever really understand what it's like? Maybe, maybe not. What matters here, though? Can they show up for you?
Hopefully this one's been helpful to you. And of course, you can get our help personally on my website, askcraig.net. I do email coaching and I do Zoom calls. Coach Victoria is also available for Zoom calls.
I'm here whenever you'd like to chat.
Just click on her name at the top of the website to schedule with her. But that's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And we will talk with you soon.